All right, so the way that I built this kit is just a little bit different than how, these kits usually are built, and it's something that we haven't seen in the game currently. So I want to get your thoughts, Kristen, on how you think this might work. If it would work, who knows? Let's find out. So the first basic ability is called primary weapons. Now, with primary weapons, it's the first of the two basic abilities that you're selecting as the Schezar player that will change the type of auto attack that you would be able to play as him. So with this ability activated, his auto attack is a large high caliber round that blasts from his forward facing guns that will deal a large amount of burst damage that spills onto close enemies. This is a true auto attack and is not a skill shot for the player. So you press Q, it's activated. What happens with it when it's activated is that's the kind of auto attack that you're doing. It's basically got a feel of like a sieged up hammer, like it's exploding, and if you take that one talent, it spills onto enemies around that you're shooting. So that's the feel with this first one.
Yeah, so you're talking about just switching basic attack types with your Q and your W, and only when you get to E do you kind of have ability stuff. So does any of this damage count for ability damage, or is it straight up basic attack damage? The flavor just changes based on what you choose.
I think it's just straight up basic attack damage, and you're doing different types of basic attacks, so no ability damage from this. You just have to change. You have to change between Q and W while you're playing. So the W is called secondary weapons. So we had primary weapons, and this is called secondary weapons. This is the second type of auto attack that you can choose from. When this is activated, the Goliath's top bay door will open and whirlwind missiles will be deployed. For each of these auto attacks, a barrage of missiles will fire from the Goliath and land in a targeted area. These missiles are armor piercing and will deal damage directly to the health of the targets that they hit. Now, this is hard to explain, but the mouse cursor of the player is always going to be the position that this auto attack will land. So the best way I can describe it is when you play Alexstrasza, right, and you take that ultimate where you fly up into the air and your mouse cursor is there and you're like aiming those meteors that are coming down from Alexstrasza. That's basically what you're doing here when this is activated, but it's for your basic attacks.
Oh, sick. Oh, so what's the rhythm with each of these attacks? So I'm assuming primary is a very boom, 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 boom. Is secondary, you fire a lot and then there's quiet? And then you fire a lot and then there's quiet?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I was thinking. So like you are moving throughout the Nexus. You're still able to move, like your mouse cursor, you're clicking around. But then if the cooldown of your auto attack is off, it's just going to fire wherever your mouse is at that point. So you got to really learn the rhythm of how it works so that you're using your mouse, not having to click, but okay, the missiles fire now, and I've got 3 seconds until they fire again, and they fire again, and they fire again. So it's got that kind of feel. So you're obviously moving in between your secondary weapons and your primary weapons depending on what you want when you want it.
True, but that secondary one sounds like that's when you can take a stand and you're going to do as much damage as you darn well can because you're not up against a chromie, so it's not like anything's going to peck you from way back in the line. And that's amazing. So, what is the cooldown for these two? So I'm trying to get what the back and forth would feel like.
So I want it to feel almost exactly like the Hammer Siege mode interlude. It takes like just a second. So in that 1 second, these bay doors on the top of your mech would open up and the missiles would fly out of them. Again, as a disclaimer, I know that the Goliaths in StarCraft don't do this, but we're changing it up a little bit here. Just go with me here, chat. Just go with me, because it's gonna these missiles are gonna shoot up. It's gonna feel different than how it felt in StarCraft, but still, it'll be a cool visual.
Definitely, and I love this idea of switching between the types of weapons, because a Goliath, Why wouldn't a Goliath have two types of weapons stored on it? It's certainly big enough.
Yeah, in any mech game I ever played growing up, I haven't played one in a while, but I remember, like, you level your mech up by getting it better rail guns, you get it better guns and attachments, maybe you get this arm that's got this crazy attachment to it or whatever. So I wanted that feel, even though it isn't completely StarCraft Goliath feel, but it's got that mech feel. So the third basic ability here is called defensive position. So when you activate this, the defensive position of the Goliath, and it will not be able to use auto attacks during this time, but you'll begin to self-repair yourself. The defensive position will also create an electronic barrier around your unit that will shock any enemy hero that comes near him. So basically you're doing a self-repair bastion kind of thing where an arm comes out and is like, welding yourself and you're healing yourself, but you're not able to do anything while you're doing this. Kind of like a Zul'jin regenerate.
Yeah, totally. And the barrier, how cool is that you get a little bit of protection? Does this deflect damage? And does it have a limit of damage it can deflect?
Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, I think we're treading into talent waters here, right? Like, you could talent into it to where it could deflect damage. Maybe it reflects damage even. Maybe you can do some crazy stuff where if they get too close, it pushes them back and away or something like that, which we're seeing a really cool ability with Maiev coming in the Nexus, where if they go outside that ring, once they're connected to you, it pushes them back to you. I mean, that is so cool.
It's great. And also, what does the shock mean? What happens to you if you're shocked by this thing? Is it kind of a doesn't matter going anyway, or is it so impeding that you'll probably be eaten alive if you go that deep?
Oh, I like the idea of this talents that we're talking about. So maybe at level 1, you choose what it does. Maybe it is that pushback. Maybe it is that stun even. Maybe it is more damage. Maybe those are your 3 choices for this defensive position when you're at the beginning of the game. So there's definitely cool stuff that you could do with that.
Brava. I agree with that because that allows for it to not only always exist, but always be useful if you know what you're up against and what would be best.
Totally. And that's something that I learned from playing with you and Kyle on the streams. There are talents that you select in specific situations depending on who you're playing against and their play style. And when you start to master that is when you start to get better at this game. And so I love adding things like that to make the hero, moldable and able to be a counter pick versus the enemy team, so on and so forth, depending on the talents that you take. Let's get into the I was gonna say meat and bones again. Let's get into this heroic abilities here. The first one is called Khadarian Crystal. So the Scavengers that he's a part of were pirate militia that under the command of the crime lord Alan Schezar, whose loyalty was to themselves and money first. So basically they're notorious for using these Khadarian crystals to control zerg, like you talked about at the beginning of the show. So how are we going to bring that to the Nexus? Well, with this heroic I had one idea. So when this is activated, he's going to place a Khadarian crystal on the battlefield that will pulse with energy, pushing enemy heroes away from it, kind of like a Brightwing ultimate. So the crystal can be destroyed by the enemy team and only stays on the battlefield for a short amount of time. But I think it's going to stay and pulse longer than a Brightwing ultimate, because the give and take, the difference here is that you aren't the center of it. You have to place it someplace and it can be destroyed by the enemy. So different, but the same.
Yeah, totally. And because it can be destroyed, are you thinking the area of the circle is smaller so people can reach it? Or will you have to draft a long range damage dealer in order to be able to counter that heroic should he choose it?
Yeah, I think you have to have ranged damage to take it out. I think that's a cool thing. Like, oh, if he goes Khadarian Crystal, then we're going to have to get some range to take it out.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's something you'd want to keep in mind during draft too, right? That's the whole fun of draft is trying to figure that puzzle out before you even get to it.
Totally. And watching HGC, obviously, and doing drafts with people that know what they're doing. I mean, it's really cool to not just auto lock your main hero and kind of play that mini game before the game actually starts. Now, the second heroic is called Target Confirmed, which you've heard probably a million times if you are playing any sort of Goliath in StarCraft. So with Target Confirmed, the top bay again of this Goliath will open up and a huge missile barrage is launched at the target location. The missiles are channeled from Schezar for about 3 seconds, and the target location is bombarded with massive damage for the entire duration. You're unable to move or use other abilities during this channel, right? So we've seen a lot of stuff like this. This is a really cool, I just like the visual of it.
Yeah, and I love that you have two heroics that do different things, but ultimately cover most situations. You have objective denial, or you have this wonderful, you've got an ETC with Mosh Pit on your team. Just wait for the Mosh Pit to go and then have fun, boys.
Exactly. Or an entomb or anything fun like that. Maybe like a maw. You can hook them up in the maw, and then right when they come out, just a huge bombardment of missiles. This isn't Reign of Destruction status. I'm talking a very focused area. Like this is a very, maybe even the size of a mosh pit that's just going to get totally annihilated with missiles. Maybe it even leaves a crater that that would be impassable terrain afterwards. Maybe that's something you talent into. Maybe it leaves fire. How cool would it be if heroes started getting synergies working with each other, right? So Blaze in the Nexus now, the fire is like his best friend. You know, it helps him, it heals him, it hurts them, it does everything. What if Schezar also could take something that would give you a Blaze fire? Like you could put this on the battlefield, and if Blaze is your tank, bam, he's benefiting from it.
Oh, I am totally all for that. I can't even imagine the complexities that would come with that. But I stand behind it 100%. Synergies between heroes, fire damage, ice damage, relationships from the lore that they come from even, you know? Like what if you have Jaina and Arthas on a team and their damage is decreased? Because you should never have Jaina and Arthas on a team with their history.
I love it. I love it. It would definitely break the game, but I'm all about it. Let's do it. Maybe there's like another game mode you could go into where you could do cool stuff like this, like Lore of the Storm.
Ooh, and then you just RP your way to victory. That would be hilarious, because then you could have my favorite would be you'd have all good guys versus all bad guys. And the hilarious twist at the end would be the bad guys learn how to work together and win, because the good guys aren't as good as you think they are, and they tear each other apart from the inside.
I think there's definitely a untapped market in there to do an RP stream of Heroes of the Storm where you play the character you're actually playing during the fight, and maybe Jaina just chooses to not help Arthas. Or
right? She friendly targets him. We didn't even know that was possible, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. But maybe, and go with me a little further on this, what if you have the Prince Arthas skin on?
Then
how would that change it?
Well, it changes the whole game. I mean, just rewrite the whole game for every skin. I love it. Maybe they turn to, Cho'Gall and one of his skins with the, what is it, the nipple hook, or it's like a nipple spike, and say, why are you wearing that? And it just blows up into a whole thing.
Yep. It's amazing.
So that is my Schezar kit right there, bringing the Goliath into the Nexus in a kind of weird and funky way, but basically being that assassin that can jump into the game and do some weird sort of auto attack changes to make it feel a little different than what we feel currently in Heroes of the Storm. Before we get to Kristen's kit, we have some people that we always need to thank, and first and foremost, they are our current supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. To our current patrons, thank you so much for supporting the show. We couldn't do it without you, and if you're out there thinking that you want to help support the show and help it grow and become even bigger and better, head on over to that website and check it out, ways that you can pledge and help us grow. Thank you again to all of our current patrons. Thank you to everybody that's given us a 5-star review on iTunes. As always, with any podcast that you listen to, it helps the show grow as well, because when people search for Heroes of the Storm in iTunes, it pops up with all the other great Heroes of the Storm podcasts out there. All right, Kristen, it's time to get to your kit. So what role classification did you go with?
I gave this one some thought. I was going to go with Assassin until I started reading the upgrades that go with the Goliath unit in StarCraft. And then my tune changed, quite literally, because I'm calling him a specialist, but what I really mean is Bard.
Really? Very interesting. I'm excited to see where this goes. So did you put some abilities out on paper and think, oh, this feels more like a specialist? Or did you just read it and you go, nope, can't do it. Can't do assassin. I gotta go a specialist.
It was the first. It was a very gradual. He's got buff abilities. So why not make this guy a team buffer, not necessarily a healer?
Yeah, and the bard aspect of it sounds like it's gonna be really cool. So let's hear the trait. Where does this go?
All right, the trait, we're going with Goliath Online. That noise has to play at least 50 times. It's a requirement by now, and I think we all have learned to accept it if we don't love it. And all nearby units have their armor increased by a small percentage. So kind of that new camp thing that we've got going on, where you get a buff for having a specific unit with you. I
love it. I think it's so cool. And I also think it's very interesting that we both went the route of armor. I mean, I think Goliaths really speak to that.
Yeah, and when we read through what the Goliath units have as upgrades, armor's one of the first ones, if not the top upgrade in terms of the tree that you go down.
Totally. Absolutely. Love it. Okay, cool. So what about mounting in the Nexus?
Well, this one's not new. I stole it straight from you, man. It's a flyer. And I totally want his little feet to have boosters. His little boot boosters. And then he can fly and hover. And it's adorable.
Totally, yeah.
I mean, totally cool and mecha rockin'.
I mean, okay, so the first thing I thought of when I saw this mounting ability is like, well, Diva's got the boosters. And, you know, we saw Tyrael in that mech cutscene has the boosters and stuff. I'm wondering if you're thinking the same thing I am, where this is more like a huge, hulking, heavy mech that takes a second to lift up off the ground. I mean, your Escaflowne feel.
Exactly. Escaflowne, and then Evangelion did it well too. These things are heavy. They're not, you don't just turn on rockets and you're going the speed of sound. You gotta build up. And so this guy, I totally want that load up to be the rockets fighting to get him off the ground. And then maybe when he lands, there's that really heavy drop because they cut immediately.
I love it. I think that's so cool. Okay, let's talk about basic abilities. What's your first one?
Right, the first one is called Ultra Capacitors. Every basic attack performed by Alan decreases the ability cooldowns for his nearby teammates.
Oh, cool. So this is a passive ability.
Yes, a lot of this is kind of passive-ish, because I want that bard feel. You're doing something, and you have to do something with the fight. But in the end, what you're doing is helping your teammates most of all.
I love it. Very cool. What does his auto attack look like?
I would imagine it's just little bullets that shoot out of his tiny fists. Well, they're big giant mech fists, but you know, they're just little bullets. So it's a steady bop, 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 kind of a stream.
Love it. So what do you think about his size in the Nexus? How big is the model? Is it a bigger model than Diva that we see? Or is it same size?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? I think Diva's a very safe size when you have mechs. I think because she's the first one we've really seen, you go with that as the standard. I mean, maybe you could make him a little shorter but wider just because the Goliaths can be so squat sometimes, but it needs to be a force.
Totally. I love it. Very cool. Okay, second basic ability.
All right, second one is Vanadium plating. Vanadium. I think it's Vanadium.
I think it is too.
Targeting a friendly unit, Alan's Goliath's plating rockets toward them, soaking incoming damage before returning to Alan's mech.
Oh, this is some Iron Man stuff going on here, right? So it's going to break off of him and fly and be like a protective barrier for them?
Exactly. So, oh, you nailed it. Very Iron Man. Each piece has its own little rocket. And so it flies over to the friendly hero, and the pieces block the incoming damage. And once all of the pieces have soaked damage, they fly back to protect Alan once more.
Oh, that is cool. So what is the timing for something like this? Like, it obviously depends on how far away he is from the target that he's targeting, like to get this plating. Is it something where he activates it on them and it stays on him until they're about to take damage and then it flies off and protects them from that damage? Or is it something you kind of have to preemptively be like, oh, here comes Vala, she's going to vault in and she's going to shoot a hungering arrow, so I'm going to put this on them before that happens?
Definitely a preemptive thing, because as soon as he activates this on his target, the armor is going to fly over. And it'll either soak all of the damage and come back early, or it'll sit on that person for a certain period of time before the pieces finally return.
Yeah, so cool. You answered my next question, as if it's going to just hang out over there. So there is a period of time in between activating it and it actually getting to the hero before it is protecting them.
Totally, because the rockets have to turn on, the pieces have to separate from the mech, and then they have to fly over to where the hero is.
Is Schezar vulnerable while the armor is not on him?
That is the question. I think unless you have a talent to make up for the missing plating, he totally would be vulnerable. If we're going with an RP, his mech is missing armor, totally.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a cool thought too. Like, you're going to use this and it's going to protect someone else, but you're vulnerable, and you could even psychologically use that in different ways, right? You could be like, oh, I want them to attack me right now, so I'm going to put this plating on someone else, but really you've got a backup plan, and the whole thing kind of just blows up from there.
Yeah, right. And maybe too, this is reactivatable. So if you're targeted when your armor's out, you can recall the armor.
I love it. Super cool. Okay, next basic ability. What is it?
All right, next one is regenerative biosteel. When not in combat, after having not taken damage for a bit, nearby teammates regenerate health at a faster speed.
Great. So another passive. This is totally Bard. I mean, I'm blown away how cool this Bard idea can be with a Goliath. I mean, this is really, really cool. And the fact that he is a leader of a group of scavengers, right? I mean, this has a great feel.
Yeah, totally. And very much like the Muradin, right? You're in the fight, you get beat up, you just need to take a breather. And if you don't want Lucio on your team, you just go with Alan Schezar.
I love it. So when you say nearby teammates, I'm assuming that even though you're a specialist, this isn't going to be used to help regen the health of merc camps or minions.
Exactly. He's more of a specialist like Medivh in that he's not a lane clear specialist. He's a team support specialist.
So cool. So cool. So these are just passively running in the background. When you don't take a bunch of damage, you start to regen health faster. Do those numbers count for healing?
Oh, maybe. Right? I don't know. Maybe not, because he's not technically counted as a support.
Maybe.
I think that's a discussion for a different... I don't know. I don't know if I could say... I don't know if I'd be the person to... But you know what? This is our show, so I will say no, because I have not labeled him as a support.
Yeah.
These numbers will not count for healing.
It's an important question to ask, though, if you think about it, though, especially with the performance-based matchmaking coming in the game some point. That would be another way that you could measure how well of a player you are with this specific hero, if you were able to do that or not. So that's a cool thought. All right, heroics, what's your first one?
All right, my heroics are combined.
Ooh.
They are combined, and they both are entitled Alan Dies at the End, because no matter which way you take the campaigns that feature Alan Schezar, he dies at the end. There's no getting around it. And as I say here at the start of this description, no matter how you play Enslavers, Alan dies at the end. To celebrate this most illustrious of careers, Alan's ult will have him die at the end, but not before totally whooping some applesauce. Going into her rampage, Alan activates optimized logistics coupled with his laser targeting system. Now firing missiles that lock on and deal a lot of damage to enemy units, the logistics running in the background lower his death timer. The longer he stays alive during this ult, the shorter his death timer, reduced to up to 50%.
Oh, what a cool idea. So this is kind of like, so you're choosing to die, you're going to be doing more damage. The longer you live during this ultimate, the shorter you're going to be dead for.
Exactly. So if you pull it off perfectly every time, even in the late game, you'll only be out of the fight for 30 seconds.
Think about it, though, how cool of an idea this is, that you are basically becoming a target that they want to kill fast because you will be on your full death timer if they do. But because you're enraged, basically, you're in a rampage, you are also dealing out major damage. So they have to choose whether they can take you out or not. And if they don't, then you live through the whole thing.
Dude, that's totally it, right? And not only that, but you're a ranged specialist too, so you're not going to be in front of the fight. Well, you shouldn't be in front of the fight. That's a whole other discussion. But ideally, you're behind your front line. So can the enemy get back to you in time, or are they just going to have to tank the damage, hopefully not lose anybody, and then have to deal with you in who knows how many seconds later?
Totally. And think about this ability defensively, right? So you're about to die, you activate this, and you just go away from the fight, and then your death timer is shorter.
That is an amazing point, right? Especially late game. If you can guarantee you'll be back faster than if you just take a death nap. Dude, that's perfect.
It's your idea. It's great. I love it.
But you're thinking of a strategy I didn't even consider when putting this in there, and I'm all for it.
Gotta get the strat. Okay, so this is both heroic. So when you pick this, that's your heroic.
That is your heroic. You're gonna die at the end of it.
There needs to be a coaching mode for this game where the game can help you learn, and it doesn't let you pick talents that just aren't for you. Like maybe it analyzes your play style and it just says, you know what, you should never ever take I don't know, Reign of Destruction, right? You should never take that. So I'm just not even going to give you the option to take it.
I could imagine a very funny joke where somebody logs into Heroes for the first time and runs that program, and then it uninstalls Heroes from his computer.
That would be mine.
End of scene.
That would totally be mine. Okay, Kristen, how do you sum up your whole Alan Schezar kit?
When this mech's a rockin', don't come a knockin'.
I mean, that's really well said. I love the idea of the Bard mech. I love the idea of supporting your team without having to do a whole lot. It's something we see with Raynor, right? I mean, you don't have one of your basic abilities. It's an easier way to learn how to play the game. Now, there are Raynor pros out there. I'm not taking anything away from that. But when I first started learning how to play the game, you only have to deal with 2 basic abilities at the beginning, which makes it easier. So, this is a really cool way of getting in there, supporting your team, not having to worry about a whole lot other than people just being around you.
Exactly. And a lot of it's so passive. Maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe we need baby characters, as it were, not as an insult, but we need training wheel characters who only have 1 ability. And then once you've graduated from that, you get 2 abilities because there is a lot of information flying at you. And if you're not seasoned, you're not going to catch half of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's a great opportunity for the tutorial to have some sort of portions of that and to kind of be updated and fixed up a little bit. I think there's some cool opportunities for that. Cool kit, Kristen. Okay, let's talk about the best parts. Skins and specialty dance moves. Let's swap it up a little bit. Let's talk about dances first. What is your Alan Schezar dance move?
All right, I thought it would be great if he did the Texas two-step in his Goliath, his little Goliath, because, they're trunky little dudes. So he does a little Texas two-step. And there's actually no one correct way to do this dance because every region in the U.S. has its own variation. And it is related to the polka, the Texas Waltz, and the Jitterbug.
Nice. So does he like put his mech hands on his mech belt loops and kind of just, do a mech version of this dance? That's what you're thinking?
Basically, I love the idea of the mech having a little belt and he's doing his little front back steps. And maybe some fiddle starts going in the background.
Of course. My dance move, basically, I'm thinking that those bay doors open up again and just fireworks start shooting out. So I just want some serious fireworks.
Katy Perry, the version, the knockoff, non-copyright trouble version starts playing in the background, and baby, you're a firecracker or something.
Honey,
darling, you're a firecracker.
Darling, you're a firecracker. Yeah, exactly. Now, as for specialty skins, as we were talking about this, I thought, oh, there's definitely an ATST skin in here somewhere, right? I mean, that would be cool.
Yes. Oh, I can't believe I didn't even think of that. But yes,
of course. I mean, when you think of walkers, that's what you start thinking of, obviously. But my specialty skin of choice over here is a Warhammer 40k Imperial Dreadnought. So if you're not familiar with this game, Warhammer 40k, it's a tabletop miniature game that you build your own models, you paint your own models, and then the rulebook is like 10,000 pages on how to play this tabletop war game. But there are these huge hulking walkers in there called Dreadnoughts. And they have these crazy weapons that like you can attach to them, and there's like 15 different types of weapons you can put on your dreadnought, and so that's what I was thinking. This would look pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing! What weapons would you have on the outside?
I mean, yeah, you gotta have those, like what I call, because that's also from Warhammer, like a whirlwind missile launcher. So it's, you've seen them before where it's like that plate that's got a whole bunch of missiles just pointing out of it, and then it shoots the missiles off from this, cool little like device. I can't really describe it. That was a horrible way of describing it.
No, I've got it. I'm looking at it right now. Aliens. The lifter that Ripley uses to beat up the Queen, except it's a full mech suit.
Yes. Absolutely. And also, back to the full kit here. I love it when like you see these missiles that shoot out and they're pushed out of the tube that they're in, and then they start to fall with gravity for a second, but then they ignite and they're, basically the rocket starts. I love that look. So maybe the missile launches out and then starts to come down and then takes off from there. That would just look really cool. And now we're just talking about animation again.
Oh, dude, totally. But then, too, you could imagine maybe all the spirals. I love the whirlwind idea because you can absolutely see what that smoke cloud would look like as they all shoot. Ah!
Oh, it'd be sweet. What were you thinking?
Okay, so I'm nerding out here because, and I've held it back from the beginning, but high five StarCraft man who is obsessed enough with Escaflowne to name a character after a character from that anime, because teenage Kristen was obsessed. She went through 3 obsession phases. First was Backstreet Boys, then it was Titanic, and then it was Escaflowne. And then I've kind of taken a back seat to never going full fangirl again. So if you had an anime obsession as a teenager that you look back and go, oh, there were some things I shouldn't have done, Escaflowne was mine. And so there's a character in there named Alan Schezar, and he pilots this mech. They're called Gymeliths in this anime, called the Scheherazade. And they've got arms and legs, and they fight with swords, and he's got a cape over one shoulder. And I totally figured that Alan Schezar from StarCraft would look like Alan from the anime series. He's got this really long blonde hair and huge puffy sleeves because he's one of those noble knights who's not so noble.
Oh man, there's so much I want to delve into here with the last statements. First of all, how do you become a Titanic fangirl? Like, what does that entail? Because I get Backstreet Boys, I get Escaflowne. Like, you can watch a Backstreet Boys concert, you can buy all their new albums, you can have posters up in your room. But like Titanic, it's just a film. Like, do you just watch it over and over and over and like memorize it?
Well, Yes, that's part of it, but it was based on a historical event, and I was obsessed with watching
Okay.
the dive because when Titanic came out, it was only a few years after they had rediscovered the wreckage, which had, everyone had thought had been lost. So and I was already in love with the bottom of the ocean and the abyssal part of the sea. So seeing this and then the historical accuracy Cameron really kind of pushed in the movie, I just became entranced. And the music, James Horner, his score for that film, one of the best. I will forever think.
You have sufficiently super redeemed yourself with that. I mean, that I can get. That I get. I wasn't sure if you were like, nerding out and like, doing like I don't know.
I wasn't a Leo fangirl.
Okay.
That's what you're asking. It wasn't about Leo and it wasn't about Rose, Kate Winslet. It was more about the historical setting and just the sheer tragedy of the event. It's like studying war when you really get into the individual stories that come out of that stuff.
Totally. I understand now. And Escaflowne was something that I've seen a couple of times. And I mean, the art in that is crazy. There's a film, right? There's an Escaflowne film.
Yes. The film is kind of we got money from the series, so here's really great animation, but it can't do what the story was for those 26 episodes.
I think I've only seen the film, so I'll have to go back and check it out. And I do think it's high five Blizzard man that did this. I mean, I think that's pretty awesome. All right, Kristen, we can say after all that craziness and talk about Titanic that this hero was forged. I do think that there is a definite silhouette issue with Diva's mech in this and bringing a Goliath in, a full-size Goliath. Because, I mean, she's even got those alternate skins that make it basically look like what we know as a Goliath. So I do think there's an issue there. I do think that they could definitely change it up to make it look different. I think people want mechs. Obviously, this whole thing blew up, and maybe it would just be a skin for Diva. Maybe it's Schezar in a Diva skin or something cool like that they could do. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, you're right with that. I think maybe one of the easiest things that could be done is make the Goliath extremely boxy because Diva's mech has curves I guess to fit her personality because she's a chick. I don't know. I'm digging too deep there. We're going to literature. Gotta pull the nosedive back up. But you could very much go boxy. And I think boxy would work because StarCraft itself, it's that dirty tech, futuristic sci-fi.
Yeah, it's possible. And I mean, there's a lot of cool ideas in both of these kits that could, make their way to a hero in the game as well. There's a ton of, it always amazes me how kit after kit we can start coming up or thinking about different things that they could do. And then when they come out with, say, Maiev, their abilities are so cool and different than anything we ever talked about. And we've been talking about this for years, right? So it just goes to show that there is no limit to the amount of creativity that can be used to make some of these heroes, and some of these Alan Schezar ideas that we've talked about could definitely be useful.
Yeah, totally. And like we talked about with Maiev earlier too, the level 20 talents are further evidence that they're going to really start breaking the mold of this expectation that they've kind of created to really test the boundaries of what can be considered a usable hero within the game.
Totally. I love it. So cool to talk about another StarCraft character. It's been a while since we've talked about StarCraft, and I think you hit the nail on the head at the beginning of the show, kind of talking about how it's the universe I think we both are the least comfortable with. So going off of what I said at the beginning of the show, it was great to learn a lot about another StarCraft character, and it's been a while since we've had one in the Nexus, so bring it on. More StarCraft characters, more learning, more awesomeness. All right, Kristen, where can people find you on the interwebs when you're not here hosting this show?
On the interwebs, you can find me at Dream Destroyer, that is DRMDESTRYR, over at Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
You switched up the order.
I know, I did. I don't know where I started, but we got all four of them, so that's what matters.
As you were saying it, I was, kind of on autopilot, and then I was like, wait, oh, did she change her name on Twitter or YouTube? Or no, nothing has changed, correct?
It's all the same still, just a different order.
Love it. Love it. Check out it in any order that you want. All of the content that Kristen puts out is just killer and worth it, like I said, in any order. If you're looking for me, you can find me right here on HeroesForge. We record the show live every Sunday at 12 noon Pacific, right here on twitch.tv/Amove TV, because we are a part of the Amove TV Entertainment and Podcast Network. Check out all the awesome shows on Amove.tv. This show can be downloaded on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can check out our website, HeroesForge.club. Send us an email, contactheroesforge@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @ForgeHeroes, and help support the show on patreon.com/HeroesForge. A huge thank you to everyone already supporting the show and helping it grow week after week. We couldn't do it without you, like we say a million times. All right, Kristen, here's a prediction for the end of the show here. Who do you think, what do you think the next Blizzard universe is that we're going to see a character? Now, we know Maiev is on the way, and that's another Warcraft character jumping in. Sort of Hearthstone-y, if you think about it. She is a playable hero in Hearthstone. What do you think they're going to hit us with next?
If I have to say one, I'll go with Diablo.
I'm going to go with StarCraft. I think I'm feeling the StarCraft pings coming. You're going Diablo. We're probably both going to be wrong, and it's going to be
another Warcraft. There are just so many people from Warcraft. Overwatch.
Who knows? Tons of great stuff happening out there in the Nexus. Get out there, play some games, have some fun, be kind to each other while you're out there. I've been playing some games where people are just being mean to be mean for no reason. Remember, you're just playing a game, and it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's still just a game.
Exactly. It's virtual. It's codes in a computer.
Yes.
That's it.
It just is codes in a computer. And with that, we're going to call the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all in the real world.